Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome everybody to Share Your Journey. And we have Steve McCann today. And I am your host, Stacy Jones. So thank you all so much for joining us today. I'm super, super excited to have Steve today. I know him from another community that we are a part of. And he just is my soft place to fall. And I don't think I've ever told him this because we really have not had a chance to talk like this. But he is, and I don't think he knows that. So I just want to share that with him and put him on the spot because, that's what happens whenever you do these lives. But without further ado, I am going to turn this over to Steve. Steve, obviously, we know your name, Steve McCann. I just wanted to start off if you could share with my group, where are you joining us from in the world?
Yeah, I'm in Rochester, Minnesota right now. Just moved here last month.
Okay. So this is going to be your hometown, Rochester, Minnesota. Is it cold?
No, it isn't in winter. Summertime, like 4th of July, we were over 90, 95 degrees and humid. It was just too much for me. I stayed inside on 4th of July weekend. But no, it varies on the season.
Okay. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So, for those of our listeners that don't know you, because I feel like I know you, but for those people that don't know you, can you describe yourself and the journey that helped you develop your business, the Pathwalker Quantum Healing, and maybe share with my community what that's all about and how you got there?
Yeah, we'll start with the last one first. I call myself a path walker. I'll explain that in a moment. An intuitive soul guide and a certified energy healing practitioner. What I do with that is I've learned hypnosis, I've learned Reiki, I've learned a few other energy healing techniques for reasons I'll get into in a moment. But I call myself a path walker because I like walking a path with a person. I'm not a leader. I don't consider myself a leader. I consider myself a guide, and guides are often beside, in my viewpoint, beside the person, walking a path with them. And as we walk that path, I learn from them as they learn from me. So that's why I like the idea of a path. And then we walk together for a while, and then they get knowledge they need to branch off, whether that's for their healing, whether that's emotional healing, whether it's physical, whether it's spiritual growth. And that's what I've been focusing more on is the spiritual side, because most people I work with, when I started with the energy healing, we ended up going into the spiritual realm where I helped them decode the messages they're getting from their spirit team and figure out who their spirit team was. So that's the path I kind of walk with people on, is on their spiritual path. And that can involve the mental, the physical, and emotional healing as well as the spiritual. The reason I got into it is back in around 2000, I was having problems with this thing called cough syncope, where you cough so hard you faint. And doctors couldn't figure out why.
Okay.
And I almost dropped my 9-month-old baby down the stairs because of one bout. At that time, and she just graduated with her master's this summer, so it was quite a while ago, obviously, but it was scary. And so the doctors couldn't figure it out. All the testing, everything I went through, 3 or 4 different specialists. But anyway, someone said go work with a hypnotist. There's also energy healer, and I'm like, I'm scared. I ended up in a ditch a couple times because of it as well when I'm driving. So I'm like, yeah, not a problem. I'm scared. But I went there. We found a repressed memory. Basically, to shorten it up, we found a repressed memory of someone trying to choke me in my sleep when I was in my early teens. And that repressed memory was coming up in such a way that it was causing me not to be able to breathe properly when I'm coughing. And we worked through that with the energy, he was a healing touch practitioner and the hypnosis. And I never had a bout of the coughing syncopes again since. But I'm so impressed with the power of the mind over the body that I went and became a hypnotherapist and a Reiki master myself. Started a business for a while, ended up getting a divorce, so I had to go back in the software industry for quite a few years. And now in the last couple of years, I decided I was going to branch out, try this again, because this is more my passion, is helping people grow in whatever form that growth takes. And for me, a lot of it is related to the spiritual side of things. Because the reason is, that's what I grew. I used to be a militant atheist. And so I had a very heartfelt prayer one day because I was driving home from work and having a bad career, bad marriage, all that jazz. And I was visited by a Native American man in my dreams that night. He stayed with me. That was Monday night. He stayed with me the entire week, even when I was working. In my consciousness, he was there. In my night dreams, he was there. And I'm like in my head by Thursday, yelling at him, like, "What do you want?" And someone else I worked with was very metaphysical, and she kind of knew what was going on and had texted me something, which made me change my approach to him. I went in my head and went, "How can I help you?" At that, he looked up from the campfire he was always cooking around, smiles, and then gives me some gifts that are related to my spiritual growth. And as soon as that happened, I realized I'm here to serve. And, I'm here. What I was doing before was like I was demanding for myself. No, I'm here to serve other people. And so that's what I'm trying to do with this: is serve people in a way that allows them to find out who they truly are, where they fit in this universe in the grand scheme, and also within their framework. Like I have my own spiritual beliefs, and other people. I've worked with people that are very religious and in different type of religions. No beliefs, whatever.
Right.
I work within their framework by doing like we're doing now, talking back and forth, and I get my intuitive hits. I would call them. I see it, I feel it, or I know something, and I'd ask them about it. We go back and forth, and oftentimes it does jar something with them, or not jar, but ring a bell with them. So that is a real quick nutshell, all over the place of what I do, why I do it, and how I do it.
Okay, well, the thing is, I want to know more. I want to know more. Okay, the one thing that you talked about a spiritual team. Okay, and so in your work, do you feel is it more than one when you're guiding these individuals?
It can. That's good. That could be a good question. I think ultimately it is, but it also varies from person to person. I say team for myself because it could be the God of your religion. So say God, creator, source, or the universe,
right,
depending on your belief structure. It could be angels, archangels. It could be ancestors. It could be ascended masters. In my case, it's a lot of Native American-based type animals, spirit animals.
Okay.
So I get a lot of spirit animals, and they have certain meanings for me. But when I get them, like if they appear to me, like I was just working with someone earlier this week, and I was seeing these certain images were coming while they're talking, and I would ask them if they mean something to them, and it would start. We'd start a rapport, and we'd start building down that track to help them understand what their team consisted of, and it could be just one. It could be just an ancestor. It could just be God. Whatever their belief structure falls under. That's what I try not to put my beliefs on them. I'm trying to help them open up, find what path they need to walk for their soul enlightenment. That's another reason I call myself a pathwalker. I'm here to help people walk their own path.
And
but yes, it could be multiples. It could be one.
Okay, I like that because you spoke about being a guide when you first started talking about what you do and what you're passionate about, and I don't know, maybe that's why I was drawn to you when I said you're my soft place to fall on our calls that we've had in another community, because you do seem as if you are a guide. Like, can I have your hand and I'll walk with you down this path? And I don't know. Now, did you, and I don't want to focus on this too much.
By the way, I'm sorry to cut you off, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
That's okay. That's all right. You're welcome. But I wanted you to talk about, if you could, and I'm sure, and I know this is very traumatic for you, but when you first began your journey and you had these spasms and so forth, and you worked with your hypnotherapist, is that the guiding part? Did you find that was the most helpful for you? Is that how you kind of fell into your groove, the guiding? where
That's
it
a
was.
good question. Yeah, that is a good question. Part of it, it's partially that. Partially when I grew up, we moved around a lot when I was younger. So I was in different schools throughout elementary grades and stuff, and sometimes in the same grade. And I had a learning disability, but nobody knew what it was at that time or knew much about learning disabilities. They just thought, part of my word, but they just thought I was retarded when they passed me along. I couldn't read in about halfway through fifth grade. I couldn't read, and an event occurred with a teacher in front of the class that got my mom mad. She got me tested and found out, no, he has a learning disability, dyslexic, things like that. So I worked with a particular individual special ed teacher. And that's really where the guidance started to come in more. And that happened when I was in junior high. That's why I ended up tutoring people. It's like my disability is in English. I couldn't read and write the way everyone else does. I'm much better at it now, obviously. But when I was in high school and stuff, I would tutor at-risk kids in English. And also, I'm also very good in math and science. I helped a lot of people. I did in college, tutored a lot of people in math and science. The reason I ended up mentioning all this is that helped hone me into my guiding because, I'm a teacher, but more than a teacher, I'm there with you, walking with you, not just remote, having you remote something back to me, repeat something back. I want you to learn yourself and adapt it for yourself. And to me, that's a guide.
Yeah, yeah, that is, wow, that, I have to talk to you more. So, you know what, also, and I have, like I said, I want to learn more because your story had so much in it. And one thing that really jumped out to me was when you said there was a figure that kept coming to you in your dreams. And it's like you were asking the figure the wrong question. And until you said, how can I help you? Then that's when it all opened up. So this goes back to this concept of serving others. So can you talk about that a little bit more, please?
That was what I had to humble myself and not be self-absorbed, which is where I was at that time. With my career, with my marriage that was failing, whatever. I had to be able to just see it from a better perspective. Right now, I'm seeing a hawk or an eagle, but because they see things from a very high perspective. And that's what I needed to do. Is instead of being in the field with the problems I was going through, I had to be able to pull myself back out and look at it from a different perspective. And that perspective was to humble myself and say, how can I help you? And in this case, I feel like the you was, the higher spirit, God, creator, source, whatever you want to call it.
Okay. Oh. So that when you came back, like looking at from a higher perspective, then that's when you felt the proper question to ask is, how can I help you? And then that's when it was all revealed to you. Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, exactly. That's a good way to sum it up.
Wow. Thank you, Steve. I am just, I didn't realize I was going to get all this emotional, but it takes my breath away. So please.
You hear us tell our story, and it's often emotional when we talk about it. There's different emotions that are at play.
Yeah.
And you're just a very empathic person, so you pick it up.
Yeah.
Is what I've noticed of you.
No, thank you.
Which is an admirable trait.
Oh, thanks. But it's just amazing just listening to you, how everything they're separate incidences, but they're all rolled into one, the guiding, the leading, and then asking, how can I serve? And then you finding your passion, and that way, the more you serve, the more you're able to help a person find their way. And it's all through serving. It's like crazy, insane, good, crazy, insane. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, I'm I'm all off track, and I don't think it really matters because I think everybody's hearing what they need to hear. So I'm not sticking with
Spirit
the
God
structure.
source will let us say what we need.
Yes, 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 yes. Um, I want to ask one other question because the reason why I'm doing this is I do want to hear about my members' journeys because I really truly believe that our journeys can be a pathway or a light for someone else. So if there's someone out there that's like feeling stuck or lost or afraid or what have you, what would you want them to know now that you have this kind of ego point of view and you have this journey, this experience underneath you? What do you think you could maybe say something to someone to get unstuck, whether they want to start a business or I don't even know, just taking that first step,
Right.
that journey, just
Right. Ultimately, I'd say trust yourself. But what I mean by that, I grew up not trusting myself. And I'm a sensitive guy, and it wasn't well appreciated in my family when I grew up. But I'm learning to realize that is my superpower. But I had to learn to trust my instincts and trust what I'm getting. That wasn't just imagination. So what I'm basically saying is learn to trust that little voice that's inside you, because we have a lot of voices that scream. But that's usually an external voice, someone else's voice, a conditioning, cultural, religious, whatever, like it's a condition that happens. But when you get silent, and that's where a lot of people pray, and I have nothing against prayer. I don't mean that. To me, that's talking to your higher power. Mm-hmm. Meditation is listening to the higher power. When you meditate, I mean, it's one form of meditation. You can do other things with meditation, but for me, when I meditate is when I listen, and that's when I hear that soft voice, and that's the voice I'm talking about following, that a person needs to learn to follow, even if it's a rough road. Sometimes the greatest journeys, well, I have two things with that. The greatest journeys happen because we've had a tough path. Actually, three. Sometimes you have more of a tough journey because you have a greater calling. Or and the other one, and this kind of ties into my view on spirituality and religion, is I think it's an old Chinese proverb where there's many paths up the mountain, but the view at the top is the same. Somebody may have an easier path, but they wouldn't have gained as much knowledge.
Say that one more time for me, please.
Which one? The knowledge.
The path.
There's many paths up. There's many paths up the side of a mountain, but the view at the top is the same. So I use that when I refer to religion and spirituality, because in a lot of ways they all talk about something very similar. They just have different language to get there, and the language is your path, if that makes sense. And I use language roughly,
Yeah.
ceremonies and what rituals that they do.
Right.
But if we now start looking at it that there's the similarities instead of using the divide, I think we as a culture, we as a race of the human race would benefit from that type of approach. So that's kind of what I'm trying to tie in when listening to that small voice inside you. Mm-hmm. It is for me nature. It could be God, creator, source, whatever you call it, trying to talk to you. But it's hard to hear it sometimes because it's a whisper when there's other things, the world yelling in our ear. So
I know I said that was going to be the last question, but of course I have to ask another thing. So how do you focus on that little voice? Because like you said, it's like a whisper. It's very, it's not very loud. So how do you do that?
Right, sorry. There's a feeling that comes with it. And that's one of the things I had to learn with that sensitivity and if it was imagination or not, is there's a certain body feeling. You call it goosebumps all over your body, whatever, but there's a certain feeling that comes with, like I'm having it right now with you asking me this question. It is, I'm not, right now I feel like I'm not speaking my own existence, but I'm like how we'll read speaking spirits will, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And that's when I feel that's when I know when I'm in the right zone. is the best way, or the flow, as some people call it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, athletes when they're really concentrated on their performance, they just get into a groove, whatever term you want to call it. It is, you're kind of outside yourself, in yourself, around, and everything's connected, and you're just part of the flow.
Okay.
And that's how I know when I'm listening versus listening to that inner voice versus the world, because it has a different tone to
Like
it.
a different vibration, like
Yes.
a different frequency. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want this to end, Steve. So this means you're going to have to come back, okay? You're going to have
That's
to
fine.
come back if it's
Getting my own
okay.
group going, so oops,
Uh,
sorry.
okay. So if you don't mind, I don't want this to end. And I certainly want to come back if you don't mind, if it's not going to be too much of a trade secret, maybe for us to go a little bit deeper, maybe do something. I don't even know, but I am just like, okay, Steve, what do you have next? So if I'm
No
feeling that,
problem.
I'm sure
You can
somebody
look
else,
something out.
I'm sure somebody else
Yeah,
is feeling
we
it.
can work. Yeah, I agree.
So,
No, not a problem. And I want to thank you for the time.
oh, of course, of course, of course. And thank you so much for joining us. And everyone out there, thank you so much for listening with Steve McCann today. I appreciate you all taking time out. Steve's going to drop in all of his contact info, all that jazz, and make sure that he has all that information that you need so that you can contact him, reach out to him if something resonated with you. Um, Certainly, I'm sure he'll help guide you to the place that you need to be. All right. Well,
Thank you.
thank you so much, and we'll wave goodbye and see if you want to hang out with me a second or two. All right. Thanks
Good.
everybody for joining
Yes.
us. We'll see you on Friday. I've got Marissa Tony. She's coming in on Friday. I can't remember the time, but I will put it up in the comments. So I'll talk to everybody soon. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye bye.